After surviving the console wars of the 1990s,
the Bit War veterans are invading your podcast
to bring you gaming intel
and old tales.
Together we are your hosts, Max Inventory
and Meow Ching.
And we are the Bit War Veterans. Welcome to 2017. I can't believe it because the other day I had a dream. I was back in 2003.
Wow, that's weird. I had some really nostalgic feelings too. I don't know.
Well, those feelings are right on time because I can't believe it, but Zelda Breath of the Wild is coming out, and we haven't had, or at least I feel like I haven't had a good Zelda game in a long time.
In less than a week, we will be playing Breath of the Wild on a brand new Nintendo console handheld hybrid.
I don't think we need to say much about it because it has been covered to death on the internet.
I think everyone knows what Breath of the Wild is at this point.
If you don't know what Zelda Breath of the Wild is at this point, just Google it or YouTube it, and you will have a plethora of information at your fingertips. Game Explain has been a great YouTube channel. Shoutouts to them. Check them out for Zelda coverage.
Yeah, I really can't believe it. I feel like I've been waiting for such a long time for a new Zelda title, and the fact that this one is going to be so different from a conventional Zelda has me really excited. Of course, we have Link, and you're traversing through Hyrule, and you're trying to get the Triforce and possibly rescue the princess, but there's some fundamental core game mechanics that looks completely different for a Zelda game. And actually, something that's really different for Nintendo. When was the last time you would say Nintendo took a franchise and kind of made it grow up? Like the way we see Nintendo handling Breath of the Wild from what we've seen so far.
It feels like when they made the flip to Nintendo 64. That's the last time I feel like the games actually grew up.
I think I would say Metroid Prime.
Yeah,
they made that grow up.
That's a great example.
But really, other than that, and yeah, maybe like Ocarina of Time, from Link to the Past, that kind of grew up. Some people say Twilight Princess took on a much darker tone and grew up from its predecessor.
Well, I was looking at it from the standard of games at that time. And Twilight Princess was I actually haven't been through it yet. I have a Wii U copy. I'm going to get through it with the sweet Wolf Link amiibo that is going to interact with Breath of the Wild.
Can't wait.
But I know that world was large. It was nice, but it still was pretty much on par with the other games out at the time.
Right, and in terms of mechanics and different things like that, we didn't see too much new ground covered with Twilight Princess. It was still your typical Legend of Zelda game. And I think with Breath of the Wild, we're going to see a lot of new ground being covered. And I don't think Nintendo has covered new ground like that in quite some time. So, hey Nintendo, good job.
With games as far back as Grand Theft Auto 3 setting the tone for open world games, they did the best they could with GameCube and Wii hardware, but now I think they finally have the hardware to allow the developers to make that type of game we've been, or to make that next evolution in Zelda that we've been waiting for. So I think that's definitely played a big part in it. And this had been designed for the Wii U from, who knows, 2011 or something. When was that very first trailer? When it was called Zelda U?
Yeah, this has been in development for quite a while. So hopefully Nintendo has given this all the thought and detail it needs.
But was held back to make it a dual launch for the Switch.
And also because of disappointing Wii U sales.
Well, definitely. It wouldn't have gotten the exposure that it deserved.
Part of me thinks they planned on releasing it sooner for the Wii U, but possibly development might have been held up a bit, and then coupled with the bad sales of the Wii U, they decided to just hold off and wait, improve on it, and launch it on the next system.
Speaking of Twilight Princess, that was also a dual release title where it came out for the GameCube and the Wii, didn't it?
Yeah, you are correct.
Were you able to play both or one of them?
I only played it on the Wii. I think there were less GameCube versions that were printed than Wii versions. And I think this is the same thing that's going to happen with Breath of the Wild. Wii U copies will be made, but probably in lesser quantity and for a shorter amount of print time. And I believe Breath of the Wild will probably see a greatest collector's hits edition far, a few years in the future.
And this is why I'm baiting this, because I've pre-ordered our games on Amazon. Meow is going to get Breath of the Wild for the Switch, her brand new Switch. I can't get a Switch, so I will be ordering it on the Wii U. Let's get as current as possible here.
Okay, here we go. We are updating you live from our studio.
And on Amazon, and I've got it right in front of me, so you've got the most current information. It says that her copy of Zelda on Switch is arriving Friday.
Right on time.
But my copy of the Wii U Zelda, delivery date pending.
Ooh, pending. So what does that mean? Is there a shortage? Are they undersupplied? Is the Amazon warehouse checking under the couch to find that copy they accidentally dropped there? Like, what is going on? They can't even estimate your delivery right now. That's terrible. Well, I hope you get it in time. If not, you're just going to have to watch me play it. And then when I go to sleep, you'll have to pry the Switch from my cold hands and play it then.
As of right now, there's still a week they can get it together. So I'm going to hold out hope. I'm going to take half a day off work.
I know. Who does that? You actually have your half day planned for Friday.
That's right.
So you could get off of work early.
I got all my ducks in a row.
And go play it and have a little extra time over the weekend to play.
That's right.
So silly.
Well, it's because you have to stay at work, so I can get a couple hour ahead lead and make sure you don't beat me to the end.
Oh, what are you talking about? I'm running straight to the end.
It's a race. We're gonna see who can complete this game faster.
I mean, completing the game is going to take a long time, especially if you're talking about all the collectibles and all the everythings, all the upgrades.
We shall see. Well, what do you feel about the DLC? That's been one of the biggest controversies of all the things to come out about this new game. All the praise, all the highlights, all the amazing innovation for the series here. But the DLC put a lot of
sour faces on people. Yeah, so the DLC, this is what I think about it. I think that Nintendo made a mistake in announcing it before the game was released, but overall, I'm okay with Breath of the Wild receiving DLC because in the past, on the Wii U, when Nintendo's released DLC for their games, I felt like the DLC was justified. I felt like the game I was receiving was complete and that the DLC was fun, additional content. And that's what I think DLC should be. Fun, additional content. Not something that patches up the original game.
Yeah, or features and storylines that were intended to be in there but ripped out.
Right, and Nintendo makes very good complete games, and their DLC, in my opinion, from what I bought, what was it, the Mario Kart 8 DLC and some Hyrule Warriors DLC. Those were good, and I was happy for the price I paid and the content that delivered, but just I think the timing of the announcement was a mistake.
Splatoon's DLC content was really well done.
Oh, Super Smash Brothers.
Yeah, Smash Brothers DLC was pretty well done.
Yeah, so Nintendo, for me, has a good track record for DLC, and I think they will come out with something really awesome for the game, but I think they should have waited for the game to come out, people to play it a little bit, maybe beat it, enough time for people to kind of get tired of it, and then announce the DLC for renewed interest.
So the extra content itself is one story. But the story within the story is that in the Phase 2, the second DLC pack, is when they actually give you the hard mode. And people feel like that should absolutely be installed in the game and not part of a DLC package. And I can agree, especially because that is slated for summer release. And I guarantee you there are going to be goons out there who are beating this game within a week or two of its release and will be craving that hard mode.
I think the question is, what kind of a hard mode is it? Like, is it the game again, just with harder, tougher enemies, and maybe you lose hearts quicker? Or is it something like Ocarina of Time's Master Quest, where it was much harder and all of the dungeons had, new parts or extra traps, and there were parts of the game that were kind of redone to be harder, so I don't know.
Well, I've been following this pretty closely, and so far, I haven't seen any kind of explanation or description of what it actually is. And that's the thing. I think people get up in arms way too quickly. There's too much knee-jerk reaction out there. I put it this way. I didn't buy it. Why? Because I don't really know what it is, so I can wait. And I'm confident that Breath of the Wild is a whole game with or without that stuff.
And it's DLC, which is optional, so if you beat the game and you feel like it's hard enough or that you don't necessarily want that extra challenge, then you don't have to buy it.
Well, we will find out if it's a ripoff or not. You know what I'm saying? There could be chunks in this story ripped out, for all we know.
Mm-hmm. I think it would be cool if maybe the hard mode also included tools for speedrunners and things to like time themselves and set up markers. I think Nintendo could tap a very big market with adding that into a hard mode.
Yeah.
Or like, different kind of speed run completion, like, 100% completion runs, or like, let's run straight to the boss kind of runs.
Yeah.
Or,
You could have competitions centered around that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so, I mean...
Big Zelda events.
It just depends on what they're putting in that hard mode. Right now, speculation.
It's too early to tell.
Yeah, I mean, the game's not even out yet.
I know. What if it's really hard already? What if easy is like normal and normal is hard? Don't you hate it when games use all kinds of different words to describe their difficulty levels and you're like, I don't know what I'm going to assume the first one was the easiest? GoldenEye, they had like Agent, Special Agent, 007, something like that. I guess maybe sport games it applies a bit more when you use like amateur and novice and intermediate. I like intermediate. Adept. But then some are also very clear, like Nightmare Mode.
Yeah, the Duke Nukem ones were always pretty funny, like Hurt Me Plenty.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Hurt Me Plenty Mode. Or like Old Wolfenstein, I Am Death Incarnate.
Don't hurt me.
Yeah. I think they should redo game difficulty settings. Instead of like easy, medium, hard, very hard, it should be like unemployed, part-time in school, full-time employment.
Oh, and it would be based upon how much free time you actually have to play the game.
Right, yeah.
That's a great idea.
Maybe the last one would be like thesis mode.
Game reviewer.
Oh, game review. All right, yeah, I think that's how the difficulty settings should be from now on. All right.
Based on how much free time you have.
Oh, man, I'm just going to pause the game and turn on broke up with girlfriend mode. It'll give me a lot of extra time. A lot of extra stuff to do to waste my time.
And more romance options.
Or an option to kill the romance options. I don't know.
But we will find out this week just exactly what we're dealing with. And you better believe we here at the Bit War Veterans are going to tear apart Zelda Breath of the Wild. Unless I won't be because it doesn't ship for me for the Wii U.
But that's okay, because you have something else to keep your time occupied. And I'm talking about the RetroPie.
I'm talking about Nintendo not following through with their promises of keeping us stocked on the NES classics. Here we are in almost March, and I still have never seen one in person.
I am going to stick my foot in my mouth and apologize to all 5 of you listeners that
5,000?
that I was wrong in one of the previous...
We were wrong.
We were wrong. In one of the previous episodes, I'd said that by Christmas, we'd be seeing a bunch of NES Classic mini editions, and that by after Christmas, they would be on sale in bargain bins. There would be so many. I have yet to see one in the wild. I hear rumors that occasionally a store here and there will get a couple in, and maybe someone has one now, but I've never actually seen one in person. It's so strange. It's like Nintendo just cannot produce these enough.
And it's classic Nintendo here. And we've seen the pattern, but they had gotten better, a little bit better in the past. They eventually got amiibos structured properly, I think.
Yeah.
Almost to a fault, because now the anniversary ones are everywhere. Those aren't probably going to be worth anything.
No, they can't get rid of the Animal Crossing ones fast enough.
Yeah, then there's those. But nevertheless, there's supply to meet the demand. And I just can't believe that they have dropped the ball and really disappointed a lot of people. And one other reason why I drank Nintendo's Kool-Aid about believing the NES minis were going to be out here in time, either for Christmas or at least widely available afterwards, is because the demand is there. They're fools for not printing millions of these damn things. You sold 5 million at $60 a pop. What is that? $300 million? Forget about it.
Forget about it.
Wouldn't you print 100 million?
I mean, the DS printed money, so I would assume that Nintendo would want to print money again with this NES Classic Edition, but they're just not.
Yeah. It's like a Wii or a DS. This thing had the potential to fart money for them, and they just said, eh.
I don't understand what made them think to produce such low numbers for North America.
Well, and we have no real Japanese contacts, so I don't know how easy it is to get there either. But shame.
Shame on you, Nintendo. Shame.
And shame on us for believing it.
Mm-hmm. I've actually heard a rumor that Nintendo's Switch pre-orders were a bit healthier than what they've expected, so they're actually ramping up production on Switch units.
Well, I'm a podcast personality, and I'm important, and I demand my copy of Zelda Breath of the Wild on Wii U at my door Friday.
I'm actually, Nintendo, why haven't we got a review Switch yet?
Yo,
why haven't
yeah.
we? Come on.
What's up with that? Like, we've been your biggest fans.
Yeah.
On the internet.
Totally. We're relevant.
We are super relevant.
We're relevant!
And to be fair, we were accurate in reporting on the news report and their statements, but we really drank the Kool-Aid there and had believed that they were going to ship out the proper amount of units.
So I just clickety-clacked and looked up on eBay. Scalping prices are still high, but they've fallen a bit. It looks like you could get your NES Classic Mini Edition fresh off of a scalper for about $120.
Now, no matter how bad you want one, I still recommend, please don't. Just because I don't want to feed into it. I don't want to reinforce that's the thing to do. Let those people sit on them. Let them have their garages and lockers filled up. Let them speculate themselves to death.
Because for much cheaper than a scalped NES Classic Edition, you could put together, like what we're doing, our own RetroPie system. So you might be asking, what is a RetroPie? It sounds delicious, and let me tell you, it is.
Very delicious. Tastes like chips.
And bites.
Computer chips, that is.
And computer bites.
So what if I told you you could have a video game library of thousands and thousands of games plugged into a little circuit board, roughly the size of a credit card, that'll work with nearly any controller, with HDMI output and storage and possibility for even more games, with built-in Bluetooth and Wi-Fi and USB ports for keyboard, mouse, and other controller inputs. What would you think that would cost? Would you want one?
I'd buy that for $1.
Well, that is exactly what a RetroPie is. We take a circuit board known as a Raspberry Pi 3, which is the newest model, released just a year or two ago.
The Raspberry Pi is a computer, a very, very tiny computer. It's not extremely strong, it's not extremely powerful, but these Raspberry Pi computers are great for like one background dedicated task, and also they're very advantageous because of their very tiny size and low cost.
That's right, we got ours for about $38 for just the board, made in UK, from Raspberry Pi. So what you do here is you can purchase or 3D print your own enclosure. So you could purchase these and buy all the components you need individually, or you can buy some starter kits that are out there and available. Do your research and read the comment feedback, see what's good, what's not. I'd like to believe all of you wonderful listeners have discernment. But once you get it into a case or an enclosure, or if you're really careful, you can keep it exposed, as you work on inserting micro SD cards or other expandable memory through the USB ports, and uploading software known as RetroPie and Emulation Station. Now, this is free software. This allows you to have a graphical user interface so you can very easily upload your ROMs, different emulators, and pretty much play whatever you want. But of course, since we're talking ROMs, you're only playing the games that you own that you're backing up, right?
Wink, wink. So yes, this involves downloading some ROMs. So, if you're trying to reincarnate as something better in the afterlife, maybe you should skip out on this part. But for those of us who are not concerned.
And I'm sure many of you out there are already familiar with emulation. You're doing it on your PCs.
Yeah, this is a wonderful way to play old games. And let's be honest, folks, if you are trying to collect older games on the original hardware, some of this stuff is very rare and expensive, and some of the stuff is not released anywhere else. So emulation might be the best option for you. And I mean, these computers are tiny. They do so much. It's so easy to connect Bluetooth controllers to, or USB controllers to. And we set up our RetroPie with games from Atari, the Nintendo, the Super Nintendo, Genesis / Mega Drive, the Sega Master System. What else do we have? Game Boy Advance, N64. And there's also emulators that work for a lot of other systems too.
And again, you can download more. As long as they're out there and people are making them and they're compatible with this, you can get it.
And people have curated a lot of really good games for ROM lists. And they also have a database where you can get, the correct titles, descriptions, even user ratings of each game. Because, we're talking about thousands and thousands of games here, potentially, that you could have. And the RetroPie interface has a great way of sorting through all of this data.
We have a 16 gigabyte chip currently we're working with. And let me put it this way, we've got to have somewhere around 5,000 games on that, spread across those systems you mentioned.
Yeah, maybe close to. I know like Atari had like something close to like 800 games.
Well, then, and that's the 2600. We also have the 7800, like 50 games for that.
Right. And I know you're trying to get MAME, old
That's
arcade
right.
games to work on
That'll
that.
be going on there,
That'll
definitely.
be a lot. And these things don't take up much space. That's the great part.
Not until you start getting to the 3D and disc-based games. Once we're into some of these Nintendo 64 games I'm trying to work with could be, 10, 20, 30, 60 megabytes. Especially a large game like Zelda Ocarina of Time. Which we've gotten to work pretty well.
Yeah, and of course all the older systems take up much less space, sometimes kilobytes, that's it. So you could fit
Yeah.
a lot of classic games on a very small micro SD card. Small as in capacity, not size. But yeah, I think this is a really good option for people that just cannot get their hands on an NES Classic Mini Edition, or for people who want to play a lot of different kind of retro games, older games, and they really just can't afford this old hardware.
I'm no tech junkie, but I'm competent enough to pull this podcast off, and I've been able to pull this RetroPie off so far. I think many of you people could do it too if you take a leap of faith. But of course, watch plenty of tutorials, read and watch before you go and decide to order and spend a bunch of money on something you might potentially screw up or don't know about. Mm-hmm. But really, there are a lot of people out there who have prepackaged things or made shortcut software that make this very user-friendly and readily available. I am not playing around in the Linux code at all. I'm operating on point and click type work here, and it's working. Very impressive.
Yes, highly recommend it. It looks so fun, and seeing these little Raspberry Pi computers chug away, doing a great job. I really want to invest in one, make my own retro station, and really start to explore what you could do with Raspberry Pis for other various tasks as well.
Which is another door this whole project has opened up to me. And we are curious if any of you listeners out there have any Raspberry Pi stories you'd like to share with us, any contraptions or systems you've built, even if it's something dull like a water timer for your plants. Hey, we're gardeners. We have our own. We might find a use for that too. You never know. You never, ever know.
And to make this project a little more special, we have a friend who has a 3D printer, and we want to make our own 3D printed case for this. And if you look online, there's people who are already steps ahead of us.
Thingiverse is a site I'm using where I found an excellent Nintendo model skin.
Yeah, so you could just download these 3D printer files and just set your printer up and print a case. And people have submitted lots of different styles. Some of them are just one solid chunk. Some of them print in many parts and have movable parts. People have their own custom designs. I mean, there's a whole market for this. And not only the shells for the consoles, but also controllers as well. Yeah, people 3D print and custom make their own controllers for these too.
You can even attach small monitors, small LCD screens, and assemble all of this into handheld units. I've seen people do.
Right, yeah. It's really easy to order a really small LCD screen and set it up with a Raspberry Pi and a custom 3D printed case and make your own portable retro station system. It's really cool what you could do with this stuff now.
And the case we picked out is on Thingiverse.com by LKM, the Mini NES Pi 3 case. And it's fantastic. It's scaled the best that I've seen out of all the other models out there. It doesn't look like a weird little chibi NES or something like that. It looks like a properly miniaturized US NES model skin, and the door flap opens. You gotta love that. That's just cute.
Now, I've seen someone on YouTube who's even gone as far as to 3D print the little cartridges out.
That's right.
Right, so you could have your game with the micro SD card in the cartridge and pop the cartridge in like a little mini cartridge.
Yeah, he hardwired a card reader thing to the flap there so you could plug and play these little carts. It's hilarious.
Yeah, so people are being really creative with the combination of Raspberry Pis and 3D printers and, keeping old games alive with this new kind of culture coming out. And I think Nintendo has a big lesson to learn, that if you miscalculate your demand and you don't deliver on supply, people will step up and try to fill that demand themselves with these third-party products. Since we've built this RetroPie, What games have you been trying out that you maybe never got a chance to try out?
With all this testing of everything, I haven't been able to play too much in depth yet. But one of the first things that caught my eye was Final Fantasy Tactics Advanced for the Game Boy Advanced. I remember when this came out, a friend of mine had an Advance, and he had a job at the time where he was able to sit on his butt and bring it in and play. Isn't that nice to get paid for that?
Oh, yeah.
At the risk of just lead exposure. But, yeah, he easily sank well over 100 hours into that. He was addicted to it. And I could tell because I loved it on PlayStation, but I never really owned it, so I never got to sink the time into what I wanted.
Yeah, and it's funny you say Game Boy Advance because the game that I picked out that I started playing was Aria of Sorrow on Game Boy Advance.
The Castlevania games that I have not gotten to play, so I want to play those. Metroid Fusion, Metroid Zero Mission, which is kind of like, a remake of the very first Metroid?
Yeah, I had a Game Boy Advance, but I remember playing Aria of Sorrow once a really long time ago, and it was spectacular, and I just really feel like playing it again. So, of all the thousands of games we now have, that's the one I went to first.
Yeah, it's interesting. Well, now that we've got some solid Nintendo 64 games running, which for some reason those emulators are hit or miss, and I've seen that kind of across the board. A lot of people have trouble with the Nintendo 64.
Yeah.
But we've got, as far as party games to play with other people, I would love to be playing the old I would love to be playing the old Mario parties again. I love them. They're classic. They fill me with joy of the old days playing with friends and the new days playing with friends.
Yeah, and one of the N64 games I started to play was Mischief Makers. I really like that game.
Great art style, and I believe done by the people who made the awesome Sega Genesis classic Gunstar Heroes.
It was also published by Enix, which surprised me. It's like, hey, who owns that Mischief Makers property right now? Is it like a Square Enix thing now? Can we get a remake? Can we do something new with this?
Can we get something?
Yeah, come on. One of my favorite games, and it was only on N64 as far as I know.
Yeah, I don't ever remember hearing about sequels for that. Maybe in Japan on GameCube or something.
Ha, who knows?
I did a playtest with my crew at work. It was really awesome how we had, 12 people or so sitting in a room, all just enchanted, being filled with their own different sets of memories as we're scrolling through all these games, and they're saying, is this game there? Is that game there? I want to try this. We had one of our buddies getting in the zone playing Donkey Kong Country 2. She was killing it.
A couple of our co-workers shouted out Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo games that I never played before. Some of those lesser-known titles.
We were able to set up a second controller. We were able to play some beat-em-ups. We tried the good old Road Rash for Sega Genesis. If you haven't played this game, it's where it's like a motorcycle race, but you get to pick up or buy weapons and beat the other guys off the motorcycles. It's brutal. It's great.
Mm-hmm. There were some Battletoads going on.
Definitely.
Oh, that game we were talking about before? Troddlers. Which is kind of like Lemmings.
Yeah, a game we hadn't heard of before that moment, and it turned out to be a really neat little Lemmings-ish type puzzle game. It was neat.
I think we tried a little bit of Street Fighter. There was some Star Fox, Super Nintendo Star Fox going on.
Yep, Mortal Kombat's.
Yeah, Mortal Kombat.
Also discovered some ROMs that were in Spanish that I've replaced.
Yeah, like Earthbound in Spanish.
Yes, whoever compiled this, their name was Nacho. And apparently we have similar taste in games because Nacho had nearly all the key RPGs in Spanish.
Yeah, whoops.
In Final Fights. That was interesting.
Yeah, and all the Mega Man X games were in Spanish,
Yes,
too.
they were. And it's funny because I was going through Genesis thinking the Fantasy Stars would be, but they were not. But Shining Force was. And the Shining Force 1 and 2. So that was cute.
So next time, instead of downloading from a guy named Nacho, Maybe download from a dude named Hot Dog. And we'll get all English this time.
Nachos and hot dog. That'll be our cartoon. Am I the hot dog?
Or am I the nacho?
You're pretty cheesy.
Oh.
And I'm a wiener.
All right, we could go with this.
All right, somebody draw us as nachos and hot dogs out there. And we will love you long time. We will feature it on our Twitter.
Yeah, so as we were sitting there, it was great because everyone was just kind of sharing their game memories. We would scroll down the list of games and people would be like, oh, this is here. I remember this game.
Later on in that evening, I was playing with my older brother, and we grew up with the Atari. This is the first system, so we started there. And we were just going through our old favorite Atari games, playing Keystone Capers and River Raid and Pitfall. Pitfall 2, which was weirder. We didn't own that one, so that was new to us. It was fantastic. The nostalgia trip we were going on, all of us.
And these lists are really good for those really weird games, too, like, the McDonald's game. And
oh, yeah.
There was this Wizard of Oz game that looked really weird.
Well, I have a setup, too, that as you're going through the list, it gives you a readout of the game summary, which most of them seem like they were ripped off the back of the case. And for a lot of the games, it plays a short video clip of what the game is in a display on the screen. So this is really like walking through the video store again. And it was amazing, the feeling of that, because a lot of these games I remember never being able to play, but seeing them on the shelves.
And the great part is you could play them, and if they're not good, you don't have to wait another 4 days and, pay for another rental.
Didn't lose any money there.
Yeah, right?
Just
Now, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Did you ever rent a game that was so bad you went back to the rental place and tried to return it early and get a refund? Yes?
Oh, yes.
Do you remember what game
The
it was?
sooner the better. Oh, not by this point, but definitely plenty of times.
Yeah.
And then especially if it was a disc game where you popped it in and either right away or an hour in, it's click, 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 or, it freezes, it's scratched, whatever's going on.
Yeah, or like, renting Friday evening, going home and learning, oh no, the game doesn't work. Can I make it back to the rental store in time to get a refund?
Heck, that would happen with DVDs sometimes.
Yeah.
Wouldn't watch it till the next day, you put it in and won't read. And you're like, come on. Well, why didn't you come back the day you rented it? I didn't watch it that night. That's why I rented it for several days.
Exactly.
I'm not trying to pull a fast one on you.
When did you become the rental police?
So then it dawned on me how all the big blockbuster games, with maybe the last game being the newest Smash Brothers / Mario Kart, they're singular experiences, or you're going home and playing online. No one's getting together to play the games together in physical space, IRL.
Yeah, there's something special about cramming a bunch of people in a room to play games. And even when you're not playing, you're having fun laying all over the couch and getting snacks and watching your friends play and talking about it. It's like the excitement I got was like the excitement I had when there'd be a big sleepover or something like that. Or
Yeah.
you're going to your friend's house late with a big bag of Doritos.
And we had this big puppy running around, so it was just a big old fun time.
Yeah, it really makes you miss that time in gaming when there was no such thing as playing together separately. You played together.
That's right. And that's the point I'm getting at here. We're missing that. And I'm hoping Nintendo Switches can help bring that back. Especially once they drop in price after they've been out a while.
Mm-hmm.
And more people have them.
The fact you could use the controllers and instantly turn it into a 2-player system gives me hope that Nintendo still realizes that a lot of people like gaming with people together. That tangible experience.
Even if it's 4 people on 2 Switches, that's still much better than a lot of other games can say.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, what is it, Halo 5? I thought they shot themselves in the foot by removing Coach Co-op. couch co-op.
But the last thing I heard is that it's coming back for Halo 6.
They learned their lesson. Wow. I mean, probably too late, but
yeah. We will see. We will see. And hopefully they can clean up that storytelling of theirs. Poor Halo. It used to be a reason to buy an Xbox, and now there's pretty much none. Now that we have the next E3 coming up, I'm really curious as to what they have to show. And are they going to show their new system? Because from trailers from a couple years back, of all the exclusive upcoming titles that were coming for the Xbox, nearly all of them have been canceled. And the few that came out were kind of duds or just mediocre.
Yeah, Xbox, I don't know what they have for them to differentiate from the competition. And by competition, I mean PlayStation 4 at this point.
Especially if you have a PC and a PlayStation 4.
Yeah, like the Scorpio is cool. It's nice.
Well, we don't know what it is yet.
We don't know exactly what it is yet, but for the most part, why are you buying an Xbox One at this point? Unless you are a die-hard Halo or Gears of War fan. Or some other exclusive Microsoft property fan.
I'm unsure at this point. And we still have hesitated to pull the trigger on a PlayStation 4. We're looking at it. We kind of would like it. But again, that handful of exclusives, is it really worth it? I don't know. For now, we will be engaging in so much Zelda Breath of the Wild that I won't even have time to touch this RetroPie.
Unless your copy doesn't ship.
That's right, unless my copy doesn't ship.
E3 has also announced that they're reopening to the public. Yes, E3 for the last handful of years was game industry people and journalists only.
It's been an on-again, off-again thing.
Yeah, in the past it was open to the public, then for a while it was closed to the public, and now 2017, E3 is open to us underclass, public, plebeians again.
If you'd like to send us to E3 instead of you, we will gladly accept your money.
Yeah, if you pay for our tickets or like room or board or something, we'll totally go to E3.
Because wouldn't it be better if you just paid us to go there to tell you what happened there? I mean,
you don't really want to actually have to like go outside and stuff like that. I mean, we'll do that for you.
Yeah, plus, it's so hard trying to discern what's going on amongst all the lights and the sounds and the booth babes. You need an interpreter. You need someone to be there to tell you what's going on because you just can't understand it yourself.
You might fall for all of the advertising and all of the free swag, so we'll be there to help guide you.
Let us take care of you.
Send us to E3.
Send us to E3.
Send us to E3.
Give us your money. But really, it's a great opportunity for the consumers to get a better, closer look at how the sausage is made, and I wonder if they'll open Q&As for some of the developers and PR people, so fans can be asking questions about these upcoming whatever they're featuring there this year, games and systems. Well, one thing is for sure, I'm expecting a lot more Nintendo Switch software release announcements there. It's going to be well into a couple months of its release, so I think they can open the gate more information of what's to come.
Right, and I think this kind of falls right into the time frame of when Nintendo said they would start charging for their online service.
Ooh, correct. So we might see a lot of online-heavy games.
We might see a lot of online-heavy games, and I think E3 would be a great time to announce all of their different plans and whatever features they have. Now, one thing that I've heard from Nintendo that makes me go, about the Switch is they said there will be no virtual console when the Switch launches.
Oh, that's right.
This will be coming later. Later when? We don't know, but virtual console will not be available at launch.
You just put it together right in front of you. When is it coming? It's coming once the internet service, you have to pay for it.
Yes.
So that way, if you want to purchase games from the Virtual Console store, you're going to be paying for the internet service. I get it now.
All right, so this is your Nintendo prediction that this is going to happen? Yes?
That's right.
Okay, we're going to write it down, and in a future podcast, we're going to say if foot should be inserted in our mouths or not.
Or at least shortly thereafter the release of the paid internet service.
Yeah, what if Nintendo does more of like a subscription-based service where you don't actually own any of the Virtual Console games, you just pay an online service to be able to play a certain number of games per month or something like that. Like, I have a feeling there's gonna be something like that in down the line from Nintendo. I just have a feeling that it's gonna be more of a pay-to-play subscription rather than pay-to-own type of a deal.
It could be, which would also explain why the Nintendo Switches ship with only 32 gigabytes, because if you don't own the one or all 5 of the games of the month that you've downloaded, you won't need the space for next month because you don't own them.
Yeah, it'd be like streaming the games rather than having them be on your hard drive and accessing them like that.
I could see that. EA Origin does something like that, where you can pay, I don't know, $3 or $5 a month, and it's actually kind of impressive the amount of games in their library they allow you to play for free. And I honestly don't think they let you keep it after you end the subscription. But the games that they do offer for free, I do have them. I do own them. I downloaded Mass Effect 2, actually, for this month. And that was really cool, because I only have it on Xbox.
So this is our Nintendo Switch predictions for E3.
Strong software title lineup. Potential release of the Virtual Console setup.
Potential release of their paid online service setup.
Or at least further description and details and features if it's already up and running.
And I suspect there will either be a brand new mobile game from Nintendo announced.
Oh, yeah.
Or some big crazy update to a pre-existing mobile title.
Good call there.
Or both. So maybe a bunch of new Pokemon Go stuff, an entire new chunk of Mario Run. There's that new Fire Emblem game that came out for mobile.
Amiibos for sure.
Yeah, we'll probably see some new amiibos. By the way, the Breath of the Wild amiibos I've seen look amazing.
I like where they're at now. These new amiibos are like evolution.
Yeah, much more detailed.
The Guardian is by itself really impressive.
It's a piece.
It's a toy.
Yeah.
It's a toy. Its tentacles move.
It's an action figure.
If I was a kid, I would be so happy with it. I'm an adult and I'm happy with it.
Yeah, I figured I was only going to buy a couple amiibos when they came out, and now I have too many, and we need to build ourselves an amiibo shelf.
We're going to do that. We're going to build an amiibo display soon. It's really funny how we went right back to Zelda here.
I think this whole episode is about our excitement for Zelda and our excitement for old games and playing games with our friends.
Well, it's how that excitement draws people together. This Breath of the Wild is a worldwide phenomenon we will all be sharing together, all opening and going through this new vision of Hyrule for the first time together. Unlike the other previous games, where now we have the internet and social media connecting us even more so. So it's really neat to think about that. Globally, we're going on that adventure together. And locally, we have now the means to bring all of our favorite old games to one place and play them together as a group of fools, like the days of old, and introducing young people to these old games where it's really easy to pick up and play, instead of having to boot emulators on computers.
Or spend a whole bunch of money.
Trying
to get original hardware.
On stuff the brat might break anyways.
Yes. So, games really do bring us together, and we want to share our Twitter topic with you. We were discussing what games have helped us form friendships or form relationships that have really lasted in our lives. I mean, I think gaming is a really great way to meet people from all over the world that share our same interests. And sometimes we make really good friends this way. Or, I've known people who have met their lovers.
Yeah.
Yeah, on games online. That's our Twitter topic of the podcast. So we will share some of your answers with everyone. Our first Twitter response comes from Riot Blues 1990. He says he met people from the United States and Japan while playing Final Fantasy XI, and he still keeps in contact with these people today.
I never played that one, but I identify. There's definitely a couple of people I still stay in touch with from World of Warcraft.
Mm-hmm. I played Final Fantasy XI for a little bit. Didn't make any long-lasting friendships, but I do know someone who played who met their current significant other playing Final Fantasy XI.
But did they have an in-game marriage?
No, I don't think so.
User 4push says that he bonded with his wife over a shared love of Fallout and Oblivion. Not an online game, but I also have done something similar.
Yeah, I know a lot of couples that just played a lot of either Fallout or Oblivion or both and just really liked talking to each other about it.
Yeah, and interesting single-player games that they can both take turns exploring and have as much fun watching as you are playing.
I call it Bethesda bonding.
Back in the day, I used to play scary games like Silent Hill 2, Resident Evil, and my sister would just be watching or, doing other stuff in the background and enjoying it because she enjoys a good scare. And those games were definitely scary.
Our next tweet is from Masamune Mage. He met this guy in Final Fantasy XI named Stanksy. And Stanksy helped him out throughout the years of playing. From 2003 to 2013, Stanksy would help him out with questing and stuff like that, even though he didn't play consistently throughout those years. Stanksy did. So thanksy to Stanksy.
It's like if you log back in, even after all those years, there he is, like a reliable guide just waiting for you to return.
I wonder, if you were to log on to Final Fantasy XI now, would Stanksy still be on?
He's the king of whatever server he's on. Mike Schultzish says Minecraft is the game. And now he has friends in Australia, England, and Sweden.
It's a bunch of friends coming together on a server and building a bunch of stuff together. I mean, you will definitely make a lot of friendships and memories from just the crazy Minecraft antics you'll get into.
Never played it myself, but I know where you're coming from.
Post Mesmeric says Persona 4. He was playing the game and streaming it all on Twitch, and he made really good friends with the people that came in and watched him and chat with him as he beat the game. I think that's a really cool experience. These people found your stream because of Persona 4, and that's what brought you together. So it makes sense that you would kind of make friends with the people who like the games that you like. There's a reason why you like the same interests. I think that's a really interesting answer.
And chances are, if you're a streamer, the more you interact with your audience, the more they'll stick around. So it sounds like you all had a great time playing through that game together. Just like we are making friends with all of you through doing this podcast and running the Twitter.
Our next tweet comes from I am Paul Venus. What a great name. I am Paul Venus. Do you have a weenus, Paul Venus? Anyways, he said he made friends with a lot of people on Battle.net and Steam, particularly playing Halo and Call of Duty.
I made a lot of friends over Halo, and the friends we already had all loved Halo, so it brought us all together. I played in Halo tournaments, and man, when Halo 2 came online, woo! That just opened the gates to meeting a whole new world of Halo players and lovers.
And trash talkers.
Space Captain Zemo says Wolfenstein Enemy Territory. Had my first Canadian friend due to it. And some of my very good friends made in World of Warcraft were Canadian. Had a good couple of Aussie brothers in there too. And all over the U.S.
The next tweet comes from Meta Flaley. And he made friends with people when he played his very first online role-playing game, which was Phantasy Star Online and the very beginnings of World of Warcraft.
Phantasy Star Online was big. I had a friend in high school who was obsessed with it on Dreamcast.
Yeah.
Sarah Realm 7 says she's met so many friends who share a love of Zelda series. If not for Zelda, she wouldn't have them. From Germany, Australia, Canada, London, and she thinks Spain.
Yes, the love of Zelda is worldwide. If you could speak a common language, you could probably speak and make friends talking about your different adventures in Legend of Zelda.
And that's a franchise where people bond over fan fiction, fan art, cosplay of it. There's so many different avenues and aspects for people to cross paths.
User La Cacalo doesn't name a specific game that has brought people together, but he says Twitter. Twitter's helped him make a lot of friends in the gaming world, and I have to say that I think one of the best decisions I made was joining Twitter, because I met so many cool gaming people and have such a good time talking and interacting with you folks, and it's part of the reason why we're sitting here doing a podcast. We would be nowhere without you, the audience, the Twitter fans, the Twitter friends. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you may not know it, but we launched with you guys as the base audience.
And that's what I use my Twitter for. I'm here to talk about games and tech and geeky stuff. Makes the world go around.
And Twitter user Moldy Clay also bonds over Zelda, Pokemon, definitely Super Smash Bros., Splatoon, Resident Evil, and Animal Crossing. Earthbound instigated a few of them, all across the US and Canada and more. Splatoon really took off in the Nintendo Wii U, and in our newest iteration for the Switch, we're going to have voice chat. Could help bring us together even closer.
Or push us apart farther.
I think they've already said no one can voice chat unless they're your friend. So you at least got to invite somebody.
Oh, that's good, because my fear would be turning on Splatoon and hearing a bunch of kids screaming. Because remember, you would play Halo. I remember it happening in Halo a lot. Mm-hmm. You'd get on a team and it's 10 kids you're playing with, and they're all like, nah, at the same time. Oh, mute.
Or even just young, hot mouth college guys just blah blah blah, oh my gosh, shut up. Please. And then I see it reflected the next year, all those same kids, and now the new little kids who are on there, now they're talking like the burnout young adults, and it's just sad.
Twitter user Des Ronan says he met some very specific friends. He says the Retro Game Geeks on Twitter. He also met DK Retro through his Yeez stream. You know that video game where it's just YS. Yeez, Y's, Yeez.
They misspelled yes.
That game.
Yeah, videos that he streamed of Yeez and uploaded to YouTube back in the day. The PSX Collector says he used to play Doom old school PC with folks from just about everywhere. Groundbreaking good times. Mm-hmm. Amen to that. I started getting into, Counter-Strike and Rainbow Six, some of those early online games. The first, the Medal of Honors, Frontline or whatever that was online back then. It was fantastic. I never maintained any friendships, but for the time, I know what he means by groundbreaking times. Quake. Unreal.
Oh, yeah.
And in contrast to all those old online games, user Rage-O-Matic has bonded over Gears of War 3, Ghost Recon Future Soldier, Titanfall, and Warframe, just to name a few. And that's a neat perspective from, and I don't know if this person's younger, but at least from newer games, that it's still going on. And it's not all just shit-talking.
Right, I know someone who met a very important person in their lives over Gears of War. And I think that's what prompted them to move across the country from the good old Midwest down to Texas. And they still live there today. I don't know if they're together with a person that they've met from Gears of War. I don't know if that lasted or not, but they made their life in a completely different part of the country because of someone they met on Gears of War.
Shout out to my friend Dead2 in Canada, if you're listening. We've had several years of good Warcraft playing and plenty of other games in there. StarCraft, Heroes of the Storm. There's people in our old guild that got married and invited a lot of guild mates up there. I have an ex-girlfriend who's married to someone she met in WoW. It's crazy just how these things have been able to, on one hand, sever us from playing live in person together in some ways, but on the other, open doors to playing with people across the world in situations we would not be able to otherwise.
I remember when Max Inventory and I were playing Star Wars: The Old Republic a lot.
Oh,
and we
8 months or a year after it got fixed after its launch.
Yeah, I mean, I really liked the game, and it's just a shame that they kind of botched their launch and not many people play it anymore. But
Yeah.
when we were playing, we ran into this guy, Adipaz. Remember Adipaz?
Autopods.
Yeah, like
Brazilian, I think he was.
Yeah, he was from Brazil. And anytime we would play at really weird hours of the night, so he would be awake. And whenever we were on, we would just, get together and quest. And even though his English wasn't the best, it was still good to have a buddy we could just run around with, right?
Look, his English was well enough that I did not even suspect it was not his native language until he apologized for making an error and then said it wasn't his language. I was like, dude, you're speaking better than many other natives of your type, so you're fine. And there was good old Waffly Carp.
Oh, Waffle Carp,
our Texas buddy. He's kind of a strange fellow, strange in all the good ways, if you know what I mean. But he was always up there late and fun guy to run around with and shoot the shit.
Yeah, chat with, definitely.
But one of my most memorable and favorite relationships was when I played this game, Mass Effect, and I met a dashing, gallant, heroic Turian named Garrus. Just his smooth, buttery voice. And by buttery, I mean raspy reptilian. His sense of humor.
You fell in love with him or
his
something?
His prowess in battle. I had to romance Garrus, but I couldn't until the second and third game.
Oh my goodness.
It was such torture throughout the whole entire first game.
You were just building up tension to that very moment.
Oh, the tension. Garrus, how I long for thee.
Yeah, I remember joining a Rust server back when Rust was still very new. When Rust still had zombies in it. That's how new it was.
Before Rust was dust.
Yeah. Back in the blueprint era of Rust. And it was a small server, but I just remember a couple of the people that were on were fun to play with. And we all made our little huts and our houses. And then there were some more new people that came to the server. And, we always had that, well, are they good guys? Are they bad guys? Are they going to try and loot our stuff? Or what are they going to do? So it was always fun to have a few people to play with and kind of conspire with.
Watch your back.
Yeah.
That was another thing on a PvP server in any of these, massive online games. It was really nice to have guildmates or friends playing who may have been a little higher level, a little better off, and they could help watch your back in areas where you're trying to just quest and level up, and these jerks who have nothing better to do are coming and killing you over and over.
Or they're killing the guy you have to turn in the quest,
Yeah, it's one thing if you're running by and you just want to have a giggle, but come on, corpse camping, ugh, get over it.
So definitely online games can create rivalries and enemies too.
Oh, the old Terran Mill days from World of Warcraft before PvP arenas.
Getting revenge on the people who killed you a long time ago.
Long, long time ago. But do you hear that? It's the Game & Watch radar.
We got bogeys on our radar, and these bogeys look familiar because we are going to be updating you about some of the past projects we've talked about. Time has passed, and they've released updates in a lot of different ways. Some of them have released, some of them have updated. We have some new news for you. So we're going to do kind of a recap Game & Watch radar rather than feature a new game for this episode of the podcast.
From episode 1, we have Drawn to Death, a fabulous-looking game made by the creators of Twisted Metal.
Third-person shooter Quake arena-style game with the art style of angry high schoolers doodling in their notebooks.
And you'll feel like an angry high schooler blowing crap up in this game. It looks fun. Looks like it's coming out on April 4th this year.
It is a PlayStation 4 exclusive.
Another reason to get PlayStation over Xbox.
Yes. So that's the only new news we have for you on Drawn to Death.
From episode 2,
We talked about ukulele, and there's a lot of new information about ukulele that we haven't talked about yet. So let's give you the quick rundown. Ukulele has a launch date, and that's April 11th. And it'll be launching on the Xbox One, the PlayStation 4, PC, Mac, and Linux.
no longer the Wii U. They decided to scrap that as further evidence that the Wii U is officially dead and the Breath of the Wild will be its swan song.
They are switching to Nintendo Switch. And
Surprise!
They are continuing development for that. It will not be released on Nintendo Switch with the rest of the game releases, but they will keep us updated about when we will see a Switch version.
I wonder if Nintendo will goad them into giving their version some extra features to help entice Switch users who may already have it to buy it twice.
They've also announced an additional arcade mode for ukulele. So that's going to have local co-op between 1 to 4 players, and there will be 8 different game modes, and they've given examples like a racing mode. It'll be arcade games, like mini games and
Competitive minigame.
right, yeah. And they said there would be 8 different modes to choose from and play with. So
Well, that's neat, and that's something that could be expanded on the Switch, where you get even more than 4 people involved.
yeah, maybe. The next bit of information we have from ukulele is that player 2 will be able to help out player 1 in the single player mode. Player 2 can control the B team, and player 2 will be able to grab quills, catch and collect butterflies, and do other things that will help out player 1, like maybe like point out traps or prevent certain bad things from happening. So that's also kind of like it's almost like a co-op mode in a way.
We'll see how that works. I thought it was just single player running around, kind of like Banjo-Kazooie.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of like on Mario Galaxy when they allowed the second player to help collect the little stars and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
We'll see how it turns out.
Mhm.
I'm definitely going to pick that up.
yeah, very excited over ukulele.
In episode 4, we covered a little game called Rad Rogers, a really radical shoot 'em up in a retro style of level design or game design, but with modern Unreal 4 engine looking polished graphics.
It's been released. Yes, Rad Rogers, the side-scroller shooter that takes place in a retro world, has been released on Steam and GOG, and to mostly positive reviews. It is true that the PlayStation version of the game is not released yet, but we hope to see that very soon. From what I see on Steam is that people do enjoy it, and you could go out and download it right now.
And did you see how much it costs?
I think it was $11.99.
That game looks way too good for that low of a price. Go check it out. Get it. I'm going to get it. And our last 2 were homebrew Sega Genesis titles.
Tanglewood and Coffee Crisis.
These games were made by independent developers who decided to go ahead and program for and produce a game for the Sega Genesis.
These games are both released on cartridges
And PC platform.
and PC, but you had the option of buying a cartridge, and they came with, the cases and the full color printed manuals and stuff. Really awesome for your Sega Genesis or Mega Drive collection. So, we have a little bit of news about Coffee Crisis.
It's out. It's available.
It's out. It's
Check it
available. We know that from their Kickstarter page, it's been released and shipped out. It doesn't seem like there were too many made, and this was definitely a game to help promote an actual coffee house in Pennsylvania and an actual brew that they make. I don't know how widely released this was, because I know there was only about a little over 200 backers on their Kickstarter, and they met their goal, but there was only about 200 backers. So this might be a very, very rare and limited release kind of indie cartridge. So if you've picked it up, if you've played it, let us know how it is.
And if you're into collecting those things, check it out. Coffee Crisis. Now the next one, Tanglewood, has not yet been finished, is it?
No.
But he met his goals and a few stretch goals, I believe.
He met the goal for the game to be developed on the Genesis and Mega Drive, and has even collected enough money to make a Dreamcast port of the game. He had over 800 backers and raised over 50,000 euro monies.
A Dreamcast edition sounds really cool, especially if he can give it a little bit of a texture, graphical bump, or, dare I say, some animated cutscenes.
Actually, on his Kickstarter, he was doing a little bit of a stretch goal for an HD port.
Oh, very nice.
Mm-hmm. And on February 24th, just a few days ago, actually, he updated the Kickstarter and let people see some more developmental screenshots. He kind of outlined the developmental process a bit further and has said that he has working versions of a Dreamcast, Windows, Mac, and Linux port, which is very exciting because maybe we'll see this also available on Steam or something.
So it sounds like he's making progress, being transparent, and those are all good signs of successful Kickstarters. So we look forward to seeing this one follow through.
Indeed.
But just in case you missed it, you can find us on Twitter at BitWarVets, where you can interact with us and respond to our next Twitter question of the week. And maybe you can be a part of the show as well.
Yes, we love it when people interact with us and ask us questions, and we'll be happy to talk about any suggestions that you have on our next episode.
Join the Borg. Add your individual distinctiveness to the collective.
Because the Bit War Vets are here to catalog your nostalgia memories, as well as our own. So thank you for listening to episode 6 of the Bit War Veterans. Be sure to follow us on Twitter, as we've just covered. And you could also follow me, Meow Ching, individually, with my random updates throughout life. And it'll be pretty crazy to say that by our next episode, we will have this Nintendo Switch in our hands with hours of Zelda, Breath of the Wild, and possibly maybe even some other games. So we'll be sure to share some of our thoughts on that next episode.
You bet your bottom dollar. We will be covering this thing top to bottom, in and out, and comparing the Wii U to the Switch version. Assuming I get it on time.
Dun, dun, dun!
Until then, we look forward to journeying through the world of Hyrule together. See you next time in roughly 3 weeks.
Okay.
Maybe 4. We're trying hard to stick to it.
I know, with all these distractions that keep coming out. Oh, goodness.
Just gotta build a RetroPie all of a sudden.
Right? You know, maybe we'll talk about some games we've been playing on the RetroPie next time, too.
Definitely.
Definitely.
Or you can give us suggestions on your favorite retro games that you might want us to check out and put on that. Thank you for listening. And don't forget, we are the Bit War Veterans.